first part of the agenda, so.
Clock is 15 minutes.
Yep, as I noticed, that's why we're starting. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PLS 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this regular meeting, the Planning Board of the Township of Franklin has been provided. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mark Dancy asked to be excused this evening. Councilman Embarson? Here. Theodore Chase?
Here.
Robert LaCourt? Here. Shaw Keller?
Here.
Jennifer Ragnow?
Here.
Mahir Rafiq?
Here.
Charles Brown?
Here.
Robert Thomas?
Here.
Rebecca Hilbert?
Here.
And Chairman Orsini.
Here. Minutes from the regular meeting from January 8th. Do I have a motion?
Councilman Embarson, Jennifer Ragnow, Robert Thomas, Rebecca Hilbert cannot vote.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Robert LaCourt? Yes. Shaw Keller?
Yes.
Mahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes. Number of resolutions tonight. First one, Rutgers Prep, PLN 24-00010.
Robert LaCourt and Shaw Keller cannot vote.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Councilman Embarson?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow?
Yes.
Mahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes.
Robert Thomas?
Yes.
Rebecca Hilbert?
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes. Macedonia Church of God in Christ International.
Shaw Keller, Robert Thomas, Rebecca Hilbert cannot vote.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Councilman Embarson?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Robert LaCourt?
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow?
Yes.
Mahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes.
Chairman Orsini.
Yes. Foundation of the Wilf Campus.
Robert LaCourt, Shaw Keller cannot vote.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Councilman Embarson?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow?
Yes.
Mahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes.
Robert Thomas?
Yes.
Rebecca Hilbert?
Yes.
And Chairman Orsini.
Yes. Resolution to appoint the Planning Board Attorney, firm of Clarkin and Vignolo.
I think you all can vote on that.
Okay, just, can we do it by affirmation, or do we need to do it?
If he says it's okay?
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
All right, move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Planning Board appointment of special counsel.
Can do it.
Peter, what's that about?
That's when he can't sit for some reason, like if there's a conflict of interest, we have to use someone else.
Got it. I was just, all right.
You thought it was special counsel? That's what you thought?
No, why not? Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Okay.
carries. Discussion items, we have none. Public comments. I'll move to open the meeting for any general planning comment not associated with the one hearing that we, it's great that I just closed my.
Second it.
Yeah, let's do that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting is open for any general planning comments. Seeing no takers, move to close.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So we have one hearing tonight. Let me go to what I just closed by accident. All right, so the hearing is Hamilton Street Management LLC, PLN 240002. Mr. Linus, you're up.
Meeting a little early tonight. Is that on? All right, ladies and gentlemen of the planning board, my name is...
Frank, hold on 1 minute. You can't do that long.
Gravitas, most likely.
Did you want to see the
Eventually, I want to stay...
When you get over here, just hit the...
Okay, how about this one? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Board, my name is Francis P. Lindis. My offices are at 11 Clyde Road here in sunny Somerset, New Jersey, and I'm absolutely pleased to represent Hamilton Street Management LLC tonight on a very fascinating project in your HBD zone. This is an application for preliminary and final site plan approval for a project located at 681, 685 Hamilton Street. It's identified on your tax map as Block 218, lots 1 to 9, and it's a .52 acre site located on the northern side of Hamilton Street between Bayer Avenue and North Dover Drive. The site has frontage on all 3 streets, so it is constrained with 3 frontages. It is located in the Township's Hamilton Street Business District zone, that's your HBD zone, and it currently contains a 1-story commercial building. It's a barber shop, I think it's Vito's Head Shop, a detached garage, and a paved parking area. Surrounding properties consist of commercial uses and mixed-use buildings with commercial uses on the first floor, apartments above along Hamilton Street, with residences located to the rear or the northern portion of the property, of the site. Now, we're looking for approval of the proposed development, and it involves construction of a 3-story mixed-use building. 3 stories are allowed in your zone, consisting of 4,605 square feet of commercial use on the first floor and 18 apartment units on the second and third floor. There will be 6 one-bedroom units and 12 two-bedroom units. We're also proposing a 38-space parking lot, including 6 EV spaces. And they're proposed behind and underneath the building with 2-way vehicular access proposed for both Bayer Avenue and North Dover Drive. Other site modifications include construction of associated landscaping, lighting, and stormwater utility improvements. And let me pause there for stormwater utility improvements. One of the reasons that it took a long time to get here was my client and his engineer worked very closely with your staff and your engineer to hopefully resolve an off-site stormwater management problem, and we think we've done it. And the hearing was deferred until we took care of that, and I believe we have taken care of that. The applicant's also seeking 2 bulk variances, parking lot setback. The zone requires a parking lot setback of 20 feet. It varies with respect to the site constraints that we have, and I think it goes down to, at least at one point of the property, to 0.5 feet. And we're also seeking a C variance or a bulk variance for the buffering requirements from Schedule 6. That requires screening on the north side of the property, which abuts a residential property boundary, and you need at least 5 feet in width, and we simply don't have the room, and you'll hear testimony from our planner. I intend to introduce 3 witnesses tonight. My first witness will be Ashrav Ragab. He's from Amark Design Studio, and he's the applicant's architect. He has a digital presentation of about 7 sheets, and we'll mark it as Exhibit A1 when we get there. It includes what we believe Mr. Healy wanted with respect to a 3-dimensional view, a rendering, if you will. That's a portion of the plans. It's absolutely similar to the plans that are on file, floor plans and elevations, except we were going to eliminate an elevator, but we're putting the elevator back in because of ADA requirements. And you'll hear from Ashraf on that issue. Our second witness is Adnan Khan from AWZ Engineering. He's the applicant's civil engineer, and he prepared the plans and supervised the plans that are before you this evening, along with the EIS, the traffic impact study, et cetera, and all the documents, stormwater documents that are before you. And then finally, we have John Tekina. He's a principal in All Things Planning and Development, LLC. Isn't that an interesting name? And he's our applicant's licensed professional planner. I also have with me the owners of the property, and I intend to have Akash Dairy. He's a principal and a managing member of Hamilton Street Management, LLC. He's available for questioning. I don't intend to introduce him with formal testimony, although the board or the public may have questions of the owner. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to call Ashrav Ragab.
Good evening. If I could just have you raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please, for the record.
Ashraf Ragab, R-A-G-A-B. Ashraf Ragab, R-A-G-A-B. The address is 2 Division Street, Suite 1, Somerville, New Jersey, 08876.
Okay, you could have a seat, Ashraf. Okay, you want to give the board and members of the public who are here the benefit of your educational and professional background, qualifications, and experience?
Yes, I'm a principal of Emerald Design Studio, licensed in the state of New Jersey since 2001.
Is your license current and in good standing?
Yes, graduated from City College of New York in 1994. It's been a while.
Have you testified before planning boards and zoning boards?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and how many of those boards have you testified before, roughly?
Frank, he's accepted. Just can you please bring your microphone close and speak right into it, kind of like I'm doing, so we can, recording can pick you up, please.
All right, Ashraf, you have a digital presentation, and you also brought along with you handout copies for the board and the board professionals.
That's correct.
I'm marking the proposed 3-story mixed-use building as Exhibit A1, consisting of 7 sheets, and I put a date on it. And we're handing it out to the board and the board professionals. Who gets the original, Christine?
I don't think I have enough for everything.
Conveniently labeled A137 already.
Okay, Ashraf, you've indicated that you've, did you prepare, would you characterize Exhibit A1?
These are the set that was submitted to the board for review, with the exception of just the renderings were added in the last 2 sheets as requested by the planner review, and there was one change that we will ask to be disregarded, which is the elevator. The elevator had been removed from these plans, but it will go back. So we are reverting back to the original plans that were submitted. There will be no change in them.
So just to clarify, but for the renderings which are attached to this exhibit,
everything else
is the same, and
Yeah.
that's been on file with the board?
Yes.
Okay.
So the building is a 3-story mixed-use building with retail and a parking in the ground floor. There's a retail strip along Hamilton Street and a main entrance for the building. And behind the retail, there is a parking lot that has parking spots for the residential unit. There is an entrance from the parking lot straight into the lobby area. Actually, no. From the parking lot, you would have to go around to go into the lobby. And there is some bike racks as required by the township in the parking area also. There's 2 retail spaces facing Hamilton Street, and on the corner of Hamilton and Avenue is the entrance on a diagonal 45.
Mr. Ragab, if I could just interrupt for 1 second. As you move through A1, if you could just refer to what page you're on.
I'm on page A02.
Perfect, thank you. I just want to make it easier for everybody to follow.
The ground floor plan. And that pretty much covered the ground floor. There is 2 staircases that go up all the way to the 3rd floor. And again, the elevator is going to be there in the lobby. There is a trash room facing the parking lot that receives the trash from a chute that goes up to the upper floors. And it's accessible from the parking area. And there is a sprinkler slash mechanical room that's accessible from the lobby. There's also a package room and a laundry room that is common for the whole building facing Hamilton Street. And it's accessible also from the lobby. The rest of the ground floor is the two commercial spaces. They're not designed for any particular use. They're pretty much vanilla boxes at this point, TBD on the tenant. Okay.
Okay, you want to identify what you're referring to next?
Sheet A3, A-03, which is the second and third floor plans. They're pretty typical. There's a single load corridor facing the parking lot along the L shape of the building, and it accesses all the apartments. There is a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. And again, the elevator and the 2 staircases, 1 staircase will be at each end of that hallway. You know, they're typical apartments. We try to make all the units have a street view or exterior view from all the rooms, except maybe for one exception. All the living spaces, bedrooms are required to have windows, but the living spaces all have windows. Along Hamilton Street, all the living rooms have window access on Hamilton. Along the sides, there's only 1 unit that got tucked in the corner where the living spaces are windowless, but the bedrooms are with view on Bear. Now we're moving to A-04, which is the elevations. You know, there's retail storefronts along Hamilton with entrances of the commercial spaces and the building. We try to abide by the redevelopment zone standards for the elevations, the height, the changes in the parapet, so as to not create a single height building. We are using 3 material as stipulated by the redevelopment zone. There is brick, there is cement fiber panels, and there is some stone at the bottom as a base. The elevations are consistent all around. There's not that much change in the material or the colors from all 4 sides, also as stipulated by the redevelopment zone. We are screening the parking lot at the ground floor with a masonry wall that's about 3.5, 4 foot high, and the rest by slats that are semi-transparent, so you can actually see inside the parking lot, but it is screened for security. Sheet A-05 are the same elevations with colors. And then when it comes to the colors, we try to emulate to a certain level the building next door, which is owned by the same owner of this building. Mr. Akash and his partners own the existing 4-story building right next door along Hamilton Street. So we try to come up with close colors that to have unity along Hamilton, since it's the same owner. Sheets A-6 and A-7 are color renderings. They were requested by the
Well, they were
planner.
requested both by Mr. Mazzai, the board consulting engineer, and as well as Mr. Healy, the board planner.
Planner, yes. That show the massing of the building along Hamilton and along the two side streets, and also the parking in the back. The parking entrance and exits are side to side along the two side streets, and there is a two-way traffic from Bayer to North Dover, and perpendicular parking on both sides. And the parking is screened all around. There's going to be a solid fence. The site engineer will testify to that on the back of the property, and the screening is along the two sides from the street sides.
How does this compare, the projections that you've just indicated on A-06, how does this compare to the remainder of the HBD district? Are these better presentations? Are they
I mean, we'd like to be that, we're trying to be consistent with the HBD regulations. And, we're trying to do something that, the owner and the tenants would be happy with. A-7 are just additional renderings. In the parking lot, there's a aerial view of the building showing the parking in the back of it. And also there is a street view of the facade along Hamilton.
Okay, Mr. Regab, are you familiar in your capacity as the applicant's architect with the Hamilton Street Design Standards?
I believe so, yes.
And do you believe that the presentation that you're making tonight and the plans that are on record and what we're requesting are consistent with the Hamilton Street Design Standards?
Yes, and we are willing to, whatever enhancements that will be requested, we are willing to add them on. So we will be asking for no waivers in terms of the HBD standards.
All right, and then these were referenced in comment number 2 to Mr. Healy's February 4th, 2025 memorandum. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, what about his comments with respect to architecture on page 4, the elevations, the screening wall design, and the attached light fixtures? Sure. Okay, we're now referring to Mr. Healy's February 4th, 2025 memorandum, specifically on page 4, beginning with his other comments.
The signage will comply with the zoning ordinance.
Frank, are you referring to the first bullet?
I believe the witness is referring to what appears on the top of page 5. I'm referring you back to page 4. Ashraf?
Yes, there was a comment that this building is too similar to another building that was designed by my firm, 789 Hamilton. It has not been built yet. It has been approved by this board. And I did review fully the design of 789 Hamilton, and I can assure you it's not like identical by any means. There are similarities, but these similarities also because they were designed by the same firm, and because of the limitations of the HBD standards and the site configurations, which are similar. So both buildings have the parking below, the retail along Hamilton, and the 3 stories above. There are different colors and different treatment, and the design of the units is quite different.
All right, Ashraf, are you confident that you can and will comply with the reasonable requirements in Mr. Healy and his report?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to refer you to the February 4, 2025 Environmental Commission comments. One of their comments had to do with the roof And is the roof ready for solar panels?
It is a flat roof, so yes, as long as we tuck the HVAC units to one side, the rest of the roof would be ready for solar panels. We would just have to make sure that the structure is designed with solar panel loads calculated in.
Okay, and the applicant, you spoke to the applicant would like to defer a decision later on as to whether they would actually install solar panels. It would depend on a
Yes.
number of factors that may exist in the future.
Yes, the roof will be ready for solar panel installations. It will be a decision of the owner to install them.
All right, once again, Exhibit A1 is similar to, it's exactly the plans that are on file with the board, except it did not show an elevator, and we're now reinstating the elevator
That's correct.
because of the ADA requirements.
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions of this witness.
So Frank, if I could just ask you to have him get a little bit more specific.
Sure.
I mean, so just as far as the similarity with 789, I mean, what I heard was there'll be different colors, different materials.
Yes.
Can you provide a little bit more detail on what that means? I mean, how do they differ and how are they similar?
I mean, I reviewed the design for 789. The windows are similar, but the treatment of the facade is not. I believe 789 has some vertical metal panels, I believe, or something like that. And the spacing of the facades is completely different. 789 has different design for the units where the living, dining areas don't have windows. Only the bedrooms are on the facade. While this one, all the units have windows on the facade. And from living as well as bedroom spaces. It is, both are single-loaded corridors with apartments along the perimeter, and both have parking underneath the building. So there are similarities. The storefronts are different from both. 789 has a lot more glass on the first floor than 685. It's quite different. I mean, massing is similar because of the height restrictions and because both are 3 stories with retail on the first floor and 2 floors of apartments.
Okay, if I could refer you to my first bullet on page 4, where I mentioned the building elevation along North Dover Ave. And if I could ask you to, pick the 3D rendering. I think on A06, the bottom right-hand corner shows that design, and that's the one that in my, in the flat elevations, it's really difficult to understand what that would look like. So that's why I asked you to provide 3D rendering. So if you could go to that page and zoom in and show the board what that's going to look like.
The
lower right-hand corner on sheet A06.
That's left.
Right-hand corner? This one here?
Yep.
Okay.
So
What would you like to?
can you explain what's proposed? I mean, it
And
looks like
just
there's a building.
orientation, which street is this facing? Is it over?
This is facing North Dover.
Okay.
And the brick facade with the vertical windows is the staircase that goes up to the 3rd floor. The 2 cement fiber panel areas are the apartments. So the window treatment is different for the stair because they follow the stair as it goes up. And the rest of the facade is pretty typical, similar to Hamilton Street facade.
Okay, but structurally, you have I'm going to call it a cantilever. You have
Oh,
this
the
steel
column?
structure,
Yeah.
and then the building is only over part of that.
Yes.
I mean,
So this is,
I like that. I think it's unorthodox. I don't know how else to say that.
Well,
And
it
I'm
is.
wondering if you're driving down North Dover, is that going to, frankly, is it going to look odd?
well, I mean, we have, we're not structural engineers, so we haven't designed this building by structural engineer yet. So there's two options, either to cantilever this full portion of the building and move those columns to the left side of the parking. Instead of these two columns being on the right side of the parking, they would move to the left. We can't put them in the middle, under the building, so they would have to be at the end of the cars, either on the left side or the right side. So for now, we put them on the right side, because, you know, that's, for me, that's easier than cantilevering, you know, about 20 feet over the parking. So we are just putting the two columns and the beams to support the building, but there will be no structure other than that. So this is not a covered area, it's open. It's just pretty much steel.
Okay, and then I don't know if the board, I'm just bringing these to the board's attention, and I don't know what, can you go to moving to the other side, which would be the lower left-hand corner? If you can bring that up. Can you describe to the board that screen?
That is the screen of the parking lot.
Can you zoom out? So I raised this in my report. Why does it go the full length of the frontage beyond the building?
Just for consistency purpose, but we could stop it at the building only and then, revert back to a 6-foot screen.
But Mark, in your report, right, with this screen or fencing, right, you referred to the fact that along the parking lot, right, it could be damaged, and so you would prefer.
No, that's a different area.
Different area?
Yeah, this is along Bayer.
Okay.
Yes.
And I just, again, I'm not sure what the purpose is, and it looks strange to me. It looks odd, and I don't know necessarily why it's being proposed. The fence you're referring to is the fence that is on the rear that adjoins a residential property. And there I had indicated that, I don't think just a placement of a vinyl or wood fence is going to be a good long-term solution, because the parking lot is, it's a 0.5 setback. It's going to get damaged.
We're definitely going to have to discuss that, but it's probably going to be with the engineer, not the architect.
The next witness, our engineer, would be prepared to answer that question.
Yeah, and that's, why I didn't ask it. But in terms of this, my opinion is similar to Mark's. I don't know, it's like, I hate to say it looks a little prison-like with the metal bars. And it could be something nicer there. Just landscaping or something, or whatever, but I don't know. It looks very sterile.
Well, I think one thing that could be done is to use several different colors on the facades. At least the renderings you have just show everything in a brick red, and that certainly makes it look more prison-like, or at least very uninteresting. If you have, let's say, a more or less black, a more or less white, and one color, it would look a good deal better. I just, this morning, was in Princeton, where there are new apartment buildings going up next to the shopping center, and they've used several different colors in that. Again, a sort of a black, a sort of a white, and a medium brown, a sort of wood-looking brown. And it can be done quite attractively. And I don't know, since it hasn't been built yet, what the other building, the 789, what the facade treatment there is. But I think what Mark is saying, particularly you want to get the facade treatments of the two buildings to be fairly distinctive, fairly distinguishable, so nobody goes in the wrong building, at the very least.
This building was not designed with 789 in mind at all. It was designed with the other building across the street. It wasn't designed by us, the building across the street. That's the same owner owns that building. So we were trying to create a little bit of unity so that it would look like, I'm not sure if the building also is owned by Hamilton Management, the other building? Yes, it is owned by the same entity. So that was the reason for these colors, but we are not married to the colors. We can look into working with the town and revising the colors slightly to have an agreeable solution for it.
Yeah, maybe a couple of different shades. I mean,
Sure.
I'm not. We're not here as a board to design it for you. We're just here to feedback on what you're proposing.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of that continued fence, I would agree with Mark that I would be nice to see something.
Sure.
Maybe not continuous. I understand what the purpose is to screen the parking. But yeah, maybe a mix of something or a little more landscaping and maybe a little less harsh treatment of the fence,
Sure.
different material. I don't know, but. That's just the feedback.
Could I just make a comment on the fence? Aesthetically, I like the fence. I've seen this in areas in the mountains, in the hills of Los Angeles and San Francisco. But it depends on the neighborhood. So it works well, I think, in that kind of an atmosphere or an environment, and I think here it's probably needs to be changed a little bit.
Sure, it's no problem. We can work with a planner and come up with a solution for the fence. It was just a suggestion to screen in the parking from the street without having it completely blocked.
I just had one quick question. It looks like one of the units on both floors has a den, is that correct?
Well, that's where the elevator was, so this can be...
Okay, so that den's coming out.
Yeah.
Perfect. Takes my question.
So the elevator was removed, and we just used the little box of it to have a room there, but that's going to go away. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't.
Back.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't. Well, where we're going with it, obviously, is I could then make a sort of a 3-bedroom. So that's where the question originated from. But problem solved. Yep. Just my 2 cents. I don't mind like the cantilevered look. It does do what we're sort of asking is it makes it very different. It is
columns that are sticking out?
Yeah, I mean, it makes it it is unorthodox, but unorthodox is not necessarily bad, right? It does make it different from the other building. I mean, I have some other concerns which we'll get to, and I'm sure Frank is very well aware of those, but this is a big concern of mine. Maybe varying shades of the treatments of the building itself, like we've said, would be something you could do just to make it not all one color. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind unorthodox architecture because, I mean, some of the best architecture in the world is pretty unorthodox. So
I mean, trust me, this was not like intentionally designed, but the building, we had to stick with the exact building coverage. Mm-hmm. So the building stopped there, and we either had to cantilever a very large part of it or stick those columns out and basically go across the parking. So we chose that solution, and I believe it's fine. We can encase those columns with something that goes with the building, and they could be just a very thin element goes into the parking lot.
Mr. Chair, I just have one more comment, which is, can you guys, so on the page you were just on, A06.
Mm-hmm.
If you can go to that, there's the middle rendering that shows the corner. Well, there's 2 corners, but that's, so the design standards, and this comment really applies to both corners, it talks about trying to do some kind of special architectural treatment at corners. Here, I don't necessarily see that here. I mean, if anything, I see blank walls. did you consider this design standard? And, they're just supposed to be, it even says you can have, some, we've seen, like little tower features or something to kind of emphasize the fact that it's a corner.
I mean, the issue here was we actually cut off the corner because of the side triangle to allow the cars on the side streets to have a little bit of visual of Hamilton before getting into the intersection. So that's why the corners are cut off. We would have loved to put a tower there, but I think it would have impeded the visual. I mean, we could look into putting a tower on the upper floors and leave the ground floor on a 45 for the side triangle. We did the same on both corners. We cut off the corners a little bit to allow cars coming out to have a little bit of a better side triangle. But we could look into do something above the entrance up to the roof. So I'm not against that.
Again, I'm just bringing these up for the board's consideration. I mean, these are the design standards that are in the ordinance. I don't want to necessarily guide you. I'm bringing these to your attention. You've heard the testimony, you're seeing the exhibit, and and the board can decide which direction you want to go.
And that's all I think we should do, because none of us, I think, have day jobs doing this professionally. We're just giving feedback. So I think your feedback is reasonable, Mark, and I think the applicants indicated that they have some flexibility with regards to architectural treatment. So. But that will have to be worked out with, staff professionals. But
Absolutely.
I mean, we certainly adopted the HBD standards for a reason. So, okay. Any other questions for this witness? Certainly, he'll remain sworn in for any future ones. Bob.
Just have one question in general, I guess. If you're going to do something above the roof on the corner, vary the colors a little bit on the entire building, adjust the fencing a little bit. How far along are we going to go before we're approving something that we haven't seen? I mean, those are pretty all-encompassing changes to the appearance of the building.
Well, the design is pretty much the same. The fence is a treatment, so we can revise the treatment of the fence, and we can get something.
Okay, I'm sorry. That really wasn't a question for you. Does the board want to have an opportunity to see the changes and approve them, or is it all going to be left to discussions with staff? And
I appreciate the question because, yes, there does come to a point where, again, you approve something and then it's staff's job to make sure, but at some point it becomes you need to see it. And you can't just defer all of it to staff. What I would say is let's go through, the rest of the reports, the rest of the testimony, and there's a few different options. I mean, at the end of this, you could decide the applicant needs to come back with revised plans. You could decide to grant preliminary and have them come back for final. I know sometimes boards will do that when there's open issues.
Yeah.
I'm
I think
somewhat
that's a good
looking
idea.
at Peter to make sure I'm not giving advice I shouldn't be giving. But
You're doing fine.
I appreciate Bob's question and Mark, your answer. So, and I totally agree. Let's just go through and we'll see where we net out. Fair enough. So, engineer next?
Thank you.
Yes. Public questions, though?
No, we're going to wait till the end, and then I don't think there's too many public here, so we'll just wait till the end.
Adnan?
Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please, for the record.
Sure. Adnan Khan, Khan, AWZ Engineering, 150 River Road, Montville, New Jersey.
All right, Adnan, would you give the board and members of the public who are here the benefit of your educational and professional background, qualifications, and experience?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, master's degree in construction management from NJIT, professional engineer in multiple states, testified in front of federal courts, superior courts, over hundreds of boards throughout New Jersey.
Licensed in New Jersey.
My licenses are current,
Yep.
and I have testified in front of this board also.
You're accepted.
Thank you.
Okay, Adnan, did you prepare or supervise the preliminary and final site plan, the environmental impact statement, the stormwater management report, the operation and maintenance plan for stormwater management measures, and the traffic impact analysis? That's before the board.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And your testimony tonight will be on the plans, the latest set of plans that have been submitted to the board, and that's what you're going to be testifying to?
That is correct, yes.
That is correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Now, explaining some of the reasons for the delay getting here is that there was an intervening point of time where you met along with our client and the township staff, predominantly Mr. Mazzai, regarding an issue on off-site stormwater, and you believe that's been resolved?
It has been resolved, yes. There was the issue with the neighbor getting runoff or stormwater runoff. So we have to make some improvements to the applicant's adjacent property as well as on the street. I believe it's Briar.
23
Bear. On Bear, and all the way up to the neighbor's property. But it is my understanding all that design work is complete and is accepted by Mr. Mazzei.
Okay. Did you review while we're on the same subject, did you review the January 22nd, 2025 report issued by Darren Mazzei of CME?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what are your comments with respect to that?
There are not much comments. It's mostly housekeeping type comments. That we don't have any issues. We will address them. We will work with him. We have a very good relationship. He was very helpful in addressing the stormwater comment issues with the neighbors. So I don't see any issues, and we will comply with those.
So to word it slightly differently, are there any points in the CME report that you wish to discuss with the board or that you feel you cannot comply with?
No.
Okay.
All right,
Excellent.
Parking spaces. Let's talk a little bit about parking spaces and the EV spaces. How many parking spaces are required under the ordinance?
Okay. I'm looking at our site plan, which was submitted and is the same exact. It's dated December 4th, 2024. Sheet C-01. We have a parking analysis on sheet C01, where we break down the parking based on the commercial use and residential use. So I'll just go quickly with the commercial. Commercial, based on the square footage of the commercial to commercial spaces, we are required to have 14 spaces. For residential, between 6 one-bedroom and 12 two-bedroom units, we are required 35 spaces. However, this project qualifies for EV credit, providing EV parking spaces and the associated credit that comes with it. So once we do all the math, the parking for residential component goes down to 31 parking spaces, 31.32. So let's say 32, and then we are proposing 38 spaces. So the additional 6 spaces, if we count towards commercial, we are short 8 commercial parking spaces.
So that's an interesting point. So there was a point in the Environmental Commission report that said you were, over spaces, right? And probably as a result of that math, right, what you're saying now. However, if you didn't put in as many EVs, right, then you would be well under the parking just, from what is required from commercial and residential, just kind of taking out the EVs. So I think you're probably in a sweet spot where you're providing enough EVs. You're not over parking, but you're not under parking either.
That is correct, but however, the EV number is dictated by the law, like what percentage of the required parking spaces.
Right.
So by the requirement, by the regulations, we are required to provide 6 EVs. But yeah, you are correct, we are over, and as far as the residential component, we are exceeding the requirement for the residential part.
Are there any, but you still feel the 38 as a total is what you need, or is there, I mean, we're always for as minimal parking as will fit the site for obvious reasons, right? Impervious coverage is always reduced and things like that, even though you're not over an impervious coverage. But just want to make sure that we pressure test that you really feel you need all those spaces, and if you don't, and you can take some out, I don't think the board would quibble with that.
Let me just put it this way, and of course, like whatever the board says, we'll do it. 32 plus 14 is 46. So technically, between the commercial and residential, we are required to have 46 spaces. We are proposing 38 spaces. So
Yeah.
if you combine the commercial and residential, we are short. But if you just take what we are providing on site with residential, we exceed.
Okay.
But
So like
technically, the overall
I kind
balance,
of said, I think you're in a sweet spot where you're kind of trying to walk the line between
correct.
those two uses.
That is correct.
All right, and did you discuss with our client any contribution for any shortage of parking on site?
Yes, and they are okay with the providing to the fund. Yeah. Yes.
6 spaces?
6 spaces. Yeah.
Our client has agreed to.
Whatever is the balance. Yes. Yes. 6
6
spaces.
spaces.
Yes. 38. Yeah.
I'd like,
8 spaces. 8 spaces.
while we're on that subject, I'd like to address a comment. I think it's in the Environmental Commission report, and the suggestion is that you not have the 6 charging station spaces right next to each other, but disperse them within the total parking area. And the reason is somebody parks in front of the charging station and gets charged up, and they finish charging, but it's the parking space, they don't want to move. Well, somebody next to that can still use the cords, so really the cords should cover 4 spaces for a two-headed charging station, which is the dual, which is normal nowadays. If they're all right together, you're not covering as many parking spaces as being available to charge at as you are if the charging stations are dispersed.
Yes, actually, there are 2 reasons why we did that. One is there is a handicap parking requirement that one handicap space needs to be a charging station. Second, when you bring EV, there is a lot of electrical requirement increases. And if you start scattering along the side, it extends. Usually, most of the time when the public service, they upgrade this facility to service the electric charging, they don't like to spread all around because it increases the time and cost. So that is one of the reasons. And the second thing, usually, if let's say, if you look around, as far as the good planning is, you need to provide these things in one location so anybody that wants to have or wants to charge their EV vehicle, they know where is the spot that they want to go. What we can do, and again, your concern is a valid concern, we can put some kind of a sign on those parking spaces that please move the car upon completion of charging or things like that for the residents. And again, we are talking about 18 residents or 18 units. So that's something that can be coordinated. Plus, my understanding is there will be a property manager on the property as well who can monitor these things as well. So that's something that I think administratively that can be covered by the management company. And plus the signs, we can add some signs there.
You could, even if you just had the charging stations all on one side of the parking lot, but with several spaces between them, then you meet the objective that I'm citing with not much additional wiring. I mean, really, when you're building the building in the first place, putting in a little more wiring, I can't believe there's a major expense. And it's a little expense, but really not very significant.
We can
But
definitely,
if you put them all on one side, then you're meeting the objective that I'm suggesting.
well, what we can do is we'll see and we can spread it out between that row of parking.
Yeah.
And see if we can spread it out a little bit. And you're right, now they have dual head chargers. So we can, instead of putting right in the middle of the parking space, we can put it on a side where 2 spaces can benefit out of the same charging station.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can definitely look into that, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't worry about signs. I mean, it's a nice thought, but it's unenforceable and relying on people's goodwill, and it's just, it never works out that way. So I like the engineering solutions better than the goodwill. So, you know, Ted's suggestion is great, and yeah, if you put them on one, then at least you're not dispersed, the cost isn't great.
In practice, the residents will probably charge at night, and employees in the retail stores will charge during the daytime. And these will be level 2, I assume.
Yeah, these are available for the people using this building, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Adnan, again referring to the CME report, this application has this application been submitted and being reviewed by the following outside agencies: DNR Canal Commission, the Somerset County Planning Board, and the Somerset Union Soil Conservation District?
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, the Somerset Union Soil Conservation District approved the plan?
We already got the permit from them, yes.
Okay, and what's the status of DNR and Somerset County?
DNR, we are waiting. We got the first round of comment from both, from the county and DNR, and we are waiting how this goes through here with the town, because there will be some changes. So before we address their comments and resubmit the plans, we just want to go through the township to make sure, like, we don't keep revising and updating the plans without, resubmission and all that stuff. But again, we have the first round of comments. We don't have any issues with addressing any of their comments, and will comply.
Okay. And the Franklin Township Sewerage Authority issued an initial report. I
Yes.
guess they didn't get your revised plans, but do you want to make any comments with respect to their initial report?
Yes, the initial report, I think
And for
that
the
was in
record, I'm
April.
talking about their report dated April 19th, 2024.
That is correct. So those comments were addressed as part of this December submission that we did, most of them. So I believe somehow they didn't get a chance to review, or they didn't get a copy of these latest plans, but most of those comments are already addressed based on their original report.
So let me save you some time, Frank. With respect to outside agencies, since they're outside and we have really no control over them, would it be your testimony that in your response to any of the outside agency comments that you've got so far, that you can comply with them and not substantially or impact what you're presenting tonight?
That is correct, yes. One thing I just also want, while we are talking about the county requires a 2 feet dedication on Hamilton Street. So if you look at it, I think the ordinance calls for the building to set back 0 feet from the property line. But if you look at this plan, we are setting back building 2 feet behind, in anticipation that the county will be requiring the dedication. So when that dedication will happen, the building will be setting at 0 feet. So we already discussed that with the county, and we have incorporated some of their comments that will affect the layouts. So that's been already taken care of.
Okay, a couple other reports I want you to make comment on. There's a report issued by the Director of Fire Prevention, John House, and that's dated January 16, 2025. You will comply with his
Yes.
comments?
Yes.
Okay. And I note for the record that the Franklin Township Police Traffic Safety Bureau, in a report dated January 21st, 2024, they have no comments with respect to this application. You're aware of that, right?
That is correct.
And then finally, on January 13th, there was a report issued by the Department of Public Health and Safety of the County of Somerset, and the Health Department has no objection to the application.
That is
And
correct.
then we saved the best for last. Did you take a look at the February 4th, 2025 memorandum issued by Mr. Healy?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Specifically on item 3, the Hamilton Street streetscape, will you comply with the requirements of the Hamilton Street streetscape?
Yes, we are actually showing a streetscape based on the previous project that we discussed, 789. We are showing the benches and other improvements and the pavers that are required. So my understanding is, like, we have incorporated that, but if there is any item that the township wants and we missed it, the applicant has no objection to fully comply with the HDP.
All right, for the record, just to deliver some testimony on Mark's report, there's a question regarding how the refuse is being stored.
Yeah, we have a refuse room, which is right on, I would say, the west section of the building, or next to the one of the retail building. I think the comment is like this refuse seems to be small. Just one clarification I want to make here is like this refuse area is for the residential use only. Retail will be storing their refuse within the store area somewhere, and that will be taken care by them. However, like as far as the room, I believe the room is sized and the bins are sized such a way, or the number of bins are located, that as you heard, the applicant owns the building next door as well. So based on their experience managing that building, they feel like this room area or this area and the number of bins will be more than enough to serve this property as far as picking and dropping the trash. However, again, whenever people start moving and this property is fully occupied, again, they will evaluate the need. If needed, they will have more frequent trash pickup. And again, this property is going to be managed by a property manager. So that is something that they will keep an eye on, and if needed more frequent pickups, they will accommodate that. But my understanding is like this is a decent sized room which can accommodate 8 units trash.
Okay, and you're not looking for any variances or waivers from the tree replacement ordinance, chapter 222?
Correct.
Okay, and you will replace the appropriate trees?
Yes.
How's your retail trash being handled?
As a retail-
That's going to be handled by the tenant, whoever will be the tenant.
But I mean, where is it?
They will probably, like, we have to build up, like, mostly, like, depending upon who's the retail store owner, like cartons and office thing, they will probably have bins within the store somewhere, partition.
But there's not going to be an external dumpster or anything like that?
No, not for them, no.
Okay, and of course, you'll comply with all the other ordinances,
Yes.
including the applicable Affordable Housing Development Fee Ordinance?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, I have no further questions of this witness.
So can we talk, and I know your planner will probably testify as to, your reasoning as to the variances, but can we talk a little bit about those setbacks and the buffering? So, I mean, that,
Sure.
I come to, there's a couple of ways to deal with it. In various extremes. But I come to Mark's sentence, in my opinion, at an absolute minimum, the applicant needs to explore an aesthetically attractive and durable means of providing screening. Because you don't have, along a lot of the site, you're only a half a foot setback. So you're not going to be able to put trees or anything in there. So how would you comply minimally with the proviso that the board may say, well, you got to comply with what it is, and the setback's going to have to be greater. You're going to have to do something with the size of your building. But given what you're proposing now, how would you address that comment?
Okay, I think the setback that is in discussion or the variance required is this rear yard setback.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as you know, like this is like a three-sided lot with three frontages. And then the shape of the lot, it's not perfect rectangle. So the hardship that is being created is in this section.
Don't steal John's thunder, he's next.
Okay. He can add on to it. So this is the area that we are talking about where we are not meeting the setback. The remainder half of the property we are meeting, we
Correct.
are landscaping and everything. We can provide, of course, we cannot provide 20 feet setback in that area just because of the geometry of the lot, unless we sacrifice 8 to 10 parking spaces. That means, like, let's say if we sacrifice this whole row of parking right here, we can work it out and provide 20 feet setback. But that will means that that will trigger a parking variance.
Well, then there's a middle ground, right? Which is you get a variance, but the variance is not as great. Maybe instead it's not half a feet, it's maybe, 5 or 10 feet, or at least where you can get some landscaping in there. It may not be 20, and so you may still technically need a variance, but there's variances, right? And then there's variances. So right now you've got a half a foot is a big variance.
And we have a couple of suggestions for that too, and of course we'll leave it to the board. One is, like, right now these parking spaces are 18 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
We can make them 16 feet length, sorry, not wide, length. So of course that is not a normal space. It's more like a compact space for smaller cars. Of course, we cannot park Suburban in those spaces, but any decent minimum size SUV or medium size SUV can be parked easily within that 16 feet. So that will give us another 2 feet, 2.5 feet. So total it will become 2.5 feet. The second option we have is, by code, this sidewalk that we have right next to the building. Based on the RSIS requirement, we are proposing a 6-foot sidewalk. But for handicap accessibility, we only need 4 feet wide sidewalk. So if we reduce the width of this sidewalk to 4 feet, we can gain another 2 feet. So those are the two options that we can work out, but that's something that will trigger variance.
Yeah, I want to hear Mark's opinion on that.
Well, before I think you had mentioned before about the 2 foot along Hamilton Street. Is that? I only caught the tail end of that. Somerset County has asked for 2 feet more of right of way.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so you can't move the building up.
No.
Okay. Well, one thought that I had was, because I think, the concern was at 0.5 feet, I mean, even a fence is going to get damaged. Cars are going to park there, and inevitably, now we're just going to have a damaged fence. And just so the board is aware, I mean, there is a residence right there. So the concerns, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 parking spaces parking, and their headlights are shining into the neighbor's yard. So it's a significant concern, and they need a variance for that. So they need to come up with, in my opinion, a workable solution. As far as the 16 feet, I personally have never seen parking spaces as small as that. I know a town that I used to work in, they would allow compact spaces at 16.5. I don't know if 16 is some standard that you can cite. Maybe the board can hear it. I'm just saying I've seen 16.5 for compact. The other thought would be, with that screening wall that was shown on the architecturals, what if that masonry screening wall went along, you got rid of that screen, that higher screen thing, and just used that smaller, I guess, masonry wall part that's more like 4 feet, and continue that around on the facade, on the side street, and then go along basically the rear, have that as your fence.
Like starting from here, going all the way in the back?
Yeah, and maybe just wrapping it around and enclosing the property, but not having that, perhaps not having that fence with that screen that, I don't think you necessarily want to have that along those people's rear yards. And then maybe in combination with reducing the width of the length of the parking lot, reducing the sidewalk, maybe that's enough room to put some deciduous trees in between the wall and the curb. There might be. I haven't done the math, what that adds up to. But 2 feet with the sidewalk and so that's at 3.5 feet now.
Which sidewalk are we talking about? Hamilton?
The rear of the building.
This one right here.
Internal, yeah. So, I mean, if that gets reduced by 2 feet and the parking spaces, those few parking spaces get reduced by 1.5, you're gaining 3.5 feet. You could put some deciduous trees back there too. So the neighbors will have some deciduous trees with that low masonry wall to block the headlights. Making the best out of what's proposed.
No, that's I just wanted to throw, Peter had a suggestion that I thought is reasonable, but I don't know whether this goes against the design standards. What if you were to make it like...
Could it be a one-way aisle?
Yeah. Does it need to be 2 ways? I mean, if
No.
you had 1 way in, 1 way out, I mean, okay. So,
I think you may lose a few spaces.
No, you wouldn't lose spaces.
No.
You just lose drive aisle width. You just make it the parking one way.
Yeah, but the drive aisle between the parking spaces is only 24 feet as it is.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think you can reduce that anymore.
Well, when you do angled if it was to be, if we went to the extreme of the angled parking, the drive aisle width gets reduced.
Yeah, but probably the number of parking spaces gets reduced.
Typically, when you angle, you lose a few. Yeah.
Yes.
We weren't even talking about angling. Pete's idea was kind of like make it one way, right, rather than a two-way drive aisle. But to Ted's point, it's already 24 feet, which is pretty narrow, so it doesn't.
Yeah, we normally ask for 26.
Yeah.
So-
And then we're going to get fire department never.
Yeah, and then I think usually 24 feet is the required backup
Yeah.
area for a perpendicular parking. Yes.
I have a suggestion. I like the suggestion of the wall, of the solid masonry wall that you said was 4 feet. If you make a wall like that, the chances are you have a flat top on it, and maybe you could put some kind of a decorative feature across the top of the wall that would sort of soften it a little bit.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Use the 4-foot solid masonry wall.
Mm-hmm.
Put some kind of, for want of a better term, a decorative piece across the top so that
Like a lattice
so it becomes maybe 5 feet high,
Yes.
but it doesn't look like just a big brick wall, solid, massive, something a little decorative with it.
Sure, yeah,
Right.
and that block, the block wall that we're talking about, it can be a decorative block itself with a pattern to it, like rather than a CMU type wall. And then, yeah, of course, a lattice on the top, that can be done, yes.
I have another suggestion. It's not perfect, but it would make things better. You've probably seen parking lots where there are, I call them diamond-shaped spaces between that extend slightly into the parking spaces, but after all, a car extends further forward than its tires, so even if you hang over a little bit into those diamond shapes, you're okay. You can still use the parking space, but in those diamond shapes are planted trees. I believe this was invented by Bruce Hamilton of our Department of Horticulture at Rutgers many years ago. But if you had a sort of a half diamond extending in right at the borders of the parking spaces, you could plant something in that half diamond without functionally losing the parking space in any way. Now, you might have to make a screen. They might have to be trees that will spread out higher up to make more of a screen. But as Mark suggested, what's really important and what's covered by the masonry wall is shielding the neighboring properties from headlights. But if you had even evergreen trees where the branches are allowed to begin just above the masonry wall, that gives you more of a vegetated screen.
Yeah, no, I understand like what you're saying. Going back to Mark's comment about the car, we are providing wheel stops in those spaces so that the car doesn't go and hit the wall. So usually you put like about 2 feet before. So that's
good.
one thing. And then again, if we decide like to shrink the length of the parking or the sidewalk, we can get you that green space that I think Mark Ram mentioned, that we can provide some landscaping in there too. So yes, we can work out a couple of options, but we need some direction from the board, like which way they would like to prefer.
Yeah,
The only
I'd
issue I see
hesitate
with
to.
respect to the sidewalk is it a RISIS requirement or not? Our planner seems to think that since it's a mixed-use building, the sidewalk is not a RISIS requirement. And I'm not sure that those folks down there at DCA would allow any reduction of the sidewalk.
RSIS's requirements are recommendations. They are like, for residential.
Yes,
they are
That's
recommendations.
true.
They are not like requirements. So.
But there's different waivers and.
Yeah, and where we're kind of getting into like a little more design than I'm comfortable with. I think the board's giving you direction that we would like some screening there. We would like the maximum possible screening. There's multiple ways to do it, and I'm sure you could work it out. Your planner's next, correct?
Yes.
Pete? Can I mention this now, this strategy? Yeah. So here's what I'm inclined to suggest, guys. I think this is I think it's a good use for the site. Certainly, it's better than what's there. It fits in with what we want in the Hamilton Street Business District. I think there's a little too many unknowns from what we've discussed tonight to give you final, but I'm willing to consider preliminary and then come back with the final design once you've worked all of this stuff out, because we've got enough differences now with building treatments, with the way a fence may or may not look, with the way that metal thing may or may not look, that, to Bob's point, I would kind of, so that way we would see you again for final, but I do want to sort of indicate that at least for me, I'm supportive of the use and the project enough to consider preliminary tonight, pending around.
Yeah, I kind of think we should wait until we hear from the planner and then go back to the board and see where we are.
Yeah, I'm just wanted to be.
You're absolutely correct, Dr. Orsini, that you're not a designer of the project, and it's up to the applicant to make the presentation and make the proposal that the board is comfortable with. And I'm reasonably confident that we can, after you hear from our planner, we can walk out with presumably a vote on the entire application. But of course, that's up to the board.
We'll see. But I'm very skeptical of that, because I already feel that we have enough variables that I'm not comfortable doing that. But I wanted to be transparent in that, I think the use and the intent, you guys have clearly put thought into this. We've had people come through here pretty damn half-baked, and I don't get that sense here. So I think that there's a willingness on my part to signal support for where you're going, but not to do final tonight, because I don't know what this is going to look like between all these things getting, we're already going too far into design. So that's where I'm at. But let's hear from the planner, and we'll go from there.
I have a question, a clarification actually for the engineer. On the engineer's comment, one of the comments is that there's drainage discharge coming from the parking lot from the opposite side. That's being addressed somehow. Is there a chance that we are going to put more drainage from this parking lot to the street? Because I think there's an issue there.
No, actually, we are designing a stormwater management system, which basically we are taking care of all the water that will be generated from this development on site. And of course, we have to reduce the flows. So we have an outlet control structure. We are reducing from the existing flows, whatever is discharged currently. So in other words, we are going to make things even better for that discharge.
And Darren has seen that, has approved that?
Sign off on
okay, all right. And what are we doing wasn't there a similar stormwater management on the other building?
There was a similar, close enough, like it was not as elaborate because this building was built based on a prior regulation standard.
Yeah, okay.
So what was happening is like the system was not big enough, and there was some water that has been draining from that parking lot onto the street and then going down to the neighbor's property at the end of the block.
Yeah.
So what we did is like we added some trench drains and redirected some water within that system, so that rather than letting the water down on the street, we are capturing on site and redirecting it.
Oh, okay. And Darren is okay with that?
Darren's okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ted, go ahead, and then Charles.
One more comment that's really my major comment, although it may not get anywhere. Sheet C02 shows the property in question extending not quite to North Dover Street. It also shows removal of all trees from the property and the frontage on North Dover Street. That corner is the one undeveloped wooded patch on Hamilton Street between Hawthorne Boulevard and Franklin Boulevard. And I always wanted the township to acquire it for a pocket park, but I never got any encouragement Bob Vornlacher would give me reasons why not, as he's very good at. But it seems to me you could at least leave the trees that are really into the setback along South Dover. And if you could move the North Dover frontage back about 2 feet, you could probably save some more trees that are shown on sheet C2 as right along the property line there. Looking at, I think it's C3, I see about a 2-foot space with several shrubs on it in the northeast corner of the parking lot. And down next to the stairs at the southeast corner, there's another 2 feet between the staircase and the first parking space. So there's a little bit of space there to work with, and I'd like to see if you could move that side of the building back 2 feet. Could you keep some trees on that North Dover frontage? Because keeping existing trees is always better than planting new ones that will take years to grow up and get big. And in this case, it would sort of preserve some memory of what the property was like before.
Yeah, like I going back, like I believe the building setback requirement on Dover is again a front yard, so it's a 0 feet, and our building is set at 0. And looking at those trees, even let's say if we move 2 feet, we will be disturbing the root system of those trees. So if they're not going to die right away or within a few months, but in a year or so, you will see all those trees will be dead. Because the foundation element of the building, the excavation that is required to put the foundation in, that will completely destroy the root system for those trees. However, we are preserving the trees in the rear that we can. So any trees that, and again, we can put a note on the plans, any trees that can be protected during construction activities, we will try our best to protect. But those trees, unfortunately, I don't think so. Those trees can be saved because of the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, well, the few that are closest to the actual pavement in North Dover are further away from your foundations, and they might survive. They're smaller. To the board, you can see them in the pictures at the end of Mark's report. But it's a shame to lose that patch, but I understand you acquire the property, you want to use it as well as you can.
I have a quick question about circulation around this site. Imagine a car going west on Hamilton, taking a right on Bayer Avenue. My concern, I go to the barbershop a lot, right there next to the pharmacy, is car speed on Hamilton still. And with the current radii at the intersection of Bayer and Hamilton, it's really easy for an accident to occur with a car exiting your site, especially with the increased number of cars that will be exiting that site, given how close that exit is to the intersection and cars speeding, making that immediate right. As an engineer, how you plan to mitigate that concern?
I mean, the speed limits, of course, like, if somebody's speeding and making a turn, they still have, let me see the distance, it's probably good, I would say 60 feet between the intersection and the driveway. And then another, I would say 15 feet if the car is coming out.
Right.
So we have about close to about 50 feet from the intersection, which is, I would say, is a safe distance for any car that's turning, like maybe at, let's say, even if they're speeding 15 or 20 miles per hour. So I think there is enough sight distance that they can react to if the car is coming out.
But there's a way to mitigate that, which is by tightening the radii at the corner. What that would do is give you a greater appearance at the entrance of your building, increasing the amount of sidewalk and visibility of the entrance at the corner. So that will ensure that that car, when it turns right, does not turn at a speed that is dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, of course, but that is subject to what county, because it's under jurisdiction of county.
Yeah, I mean, you can recommend it
we
to
can
county.
recommend, yeah, we can
Absolutely.
recommend, but it's subject to the county.
It's a safety concern.
Yeah.
Okay, we're seeing that right now at the new McDonald's across from Stop and Shop, where you're at the intersection. There's another entrance very close. It's only a matter of time before an accident happens there. And as someone who frequents this site a lot, that's a huge concern right
Understood,
now.
yeah.
All right.
And I think it's a question, Mr. Brown, of jurisdiction.
I get it.
We will do whatever we can with the county to make that recommendation.
Absolutely.
It is entirely up to them since they have jurisdiction.
I understand. So, but you have, the power of great design, and you can encourage them by way of safety. That is a issue waiting to happen. The other piece, and maybe this is for the township itself, we've been putting really beautiful buildings along this corridor. It's the Hamilton Street Business District, but it's looking really cheap lately. And the reason is because there's no sign standard in terms of window coverage. You all design these beautiful buildings, and the retail spaces immediately put up signs where there's no transparency in and out. And so my support of this would be hopefully some sort of way to say there should be no coverage or minimum coverage of the signing on the bottom floor, because that's becoming a problem. It's extremely cluttered in terms of a design standpoint. So
For the commercial aspect.
for the commercial, yes. It'll just, things will look better if they're not cluttered. Right now, businesses are adding far too much signage in the windows. Is also a crime concern as well.
That thing, I don't know, it's more like an enforcement issue with the town, or?
I don't know, Mark. How can we do
enforce it?
something about that? Because, as someone who's 15 years here, it's a problem. We design beautiful buildings, and then we allow people to put signs in the windows to cover the windows. Windows are meant to be seen in and out of instead of covered by signs.
Yeah, I mean, that is an enforcement thing. I mean, the signage on Hamilton is a consistent issue. And there is
20 years plus?
It is. And there is a standard, there is a limit. Off the top of my head, I don't remember, but it's either 25% or 50% of the window that can be covered. And there is a max. So if there are businesses covering their entire storefront with windows, then that is a violation.
Yeah, we just want to keep the corridor as attractive as we can, and I think with the great architecture that's coming here, it's taking away from that. So whatever we can
My
do.
experience coincides with Mark. Either the signs are permitted or not permitted. If they're not permitted, but a developer or an owner or a tenant, for that matter, decides to violate the ordinance, then typically it involves enforcement rather than planning board action.
Thank you.
And just for the record, all of your signs proposed for the commercial are completely compliant.
I just want to make sure I understand the trash situation completely. I know you said that it will be the tenants for the commercial property's responsibility to store it, and there's going to be no dumpster. So on trash days, do they just take it out and put it on the sidewalk, or how do they get rid of it?
Again, as I said, there will be a property manager for the thing, for this whole development. So they will be, the retail or the commercial tenants have to coordinate with the property manager, and then they will take care of the trash.
Okay. That's very specific. But
will it be expected for the trash collecting truck to enter the parking lot, or?
No, because this parking lot has a requirement, like there's a ceiling height.
That's what I was figuring, yeah.
Yeah, that's why we have a property manager, and they will have private pickup. Private pickup, though, you have a flexibility of using an equipment that is compatible with the site. They don't necessarily have to bring a dump truck to do that. They can bring a Ford-mounted Ford 150 or 250 with the trash handling mechanisms, and they can just pick up and dispose of the containers there. So that's what's going to happen at this site. And again, the first, I would say, couple of months, they will know more accurately the frequency that they need, because of course they're putting this building, beautiful building, they don't want the trash to accumulate on the property. So again, so they will make that frequency, if it needs to be made more frequent, that what will be happening.
So probably the manager would put the, call them garbage cans, they'll look better than that, out on the Bayer Avenue curb, and the truck will come along, and they probably have, I see John shaking his head madly.
I'll talk about it.
Okay.
I mean, there are two ways they can do it. Depending upon the equipment that the waste management company, whoever they contract with, they want to accommodate with this site. If they're bringing a smaller truck, like as I mentioned, there are small like Fords or Dodges or whatever that are equipped, they can drive in through the driveway. They can stand in front of the trash enclosure, bring the bins out, empty, and then leave. If there is a bigger equipment that cannot meet the ceiling height of the building, then they have to park by the curbside, and then the trash had to be brought out. And that's something that will be evaluated during the first few months of the operations of the building.
I know the truck that picks up my garbage, it's a one-man truck, and it has a mechanical arm that reaches out and picks up the garbage container and dumps the contents into the truck. So all you have...
I believe you have a regular dump truck, truck that comes in. But again, with the private haulers, they have all different shape and size equipment. So they cater based on the availability, how best they can come in and out and pick up the garbage, and they accommodate that.
So could I pick up on that, Rebecca's question? So I had the similar on the pickup day for the retail. I am not clear as to what is the process. I understand that the property manager will decide, but for me, that's a little bit on the loose end. So those things have to be more finite, right? What will be the steps? Will they collect it? Will they actually put it in the dump, the trash on property? Will they be responsible for their own private pickup? So I would like to see very specifics on that, right? Even if it's property management. So what is your plan on that?
Yeah, I think we have the applicant here who manages the building next door.
Okay.
So I think he might be the best person to answer how they're handling that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I've been advised that Mr. Takina has the information. He's our planner. He's our next witness, and he'll answer your question.
All right, let's go to him, Frank.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John?
Good evening. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please, for the record.
My name is John Tykina, T as in Thomas, A-I, K as in Kelly, I-N as in Nancy A. I'm a principal with All Things Planning and Development in South Brunswick, New Jersey, 30 Newman Road, Kendall Park.
All right, Mr. Takina, would you give the board and members of the public who are here the benefit of your educational and professional background, qualifications, and experience?
Certainly. Hi, I'm a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey. I have been since I completed my studies at Rutgers University in 1992. I've spent the last 32 years doing this, testifying on behalf of applicants before boards throughout New Jersey and around the country. I've testified before more than 190 different boards around the country, and mostly in New Jersey, but also California. So been to LA, seen the walls. I agree with you. And did 5 years in LA. It was a lot of fun. LA, Los Angeles, Florida, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania, in addition to New Jersey. My license is current and in good standing, was renewed on May 7th. And yes, I was asked that date by the board in Patterson, believe it or not.
Okay,
You're
Mr.
quite particular.
Takina,
Very well accepted, so please proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Takina, we're applying for preliminary and final site plan approval tonight, and we conform with the ordinances, is that correct? But for two variances that are being requested, one relating to parking lot setback and one relating to buffering. Would you provide the board and the members of the public who are here the benefits of proofs regarding those two variances?
Certainly. So I am here to talk about the variance relief. That does start a little bit with our overall compliance with the HBD standards and with the HBD design standards. Frankly, I think I think I said to my client, the project's great. It is really a nice adaptation of taking the HBD standards and applying them to a site, admittedly that is small and is challenged. And I think that the architect and the engineer have done a very nice job of applying those standards and implementing it across the site. As always, there are taste things that boards can address, whether it comes to colors or et cetera. What gives me, what works for me as a planner and an urban designer is the building is in the right spot, it's the right size, it's the right shape. Our buildings, our windows, our doors, our massing, all of those things are correct. We have a great retail frontage along Hamilton Street. We have high quality access points. We have clear and defined entrances for our different uses. Our parking is around to the rear. It's half of it's inside, underneath the building. The other half is screened. We can certainly discuss the method of that screening, and that's like great conversation to have. I think the board has given us good direction on how to address that buffer adjacent to the residents there, and I agree it's very, very important. But our bones are very good. And then the second part of it is our materials are very good. So we have brick, we have a fiber cement siding and fiber cement board, and we have stone. So we have 3 high-quality materials. We can certainly refine them in ways that would be more acceptable to the board, make sure we don't copycat onto 789. I would love if we copycatted on 695 next door, because frankly, I think that's the most attractive building in the Hamilton Street corridor. The building that is next door that is owned by my client. So when I see that and see how that building is operated, it gives me great comfort that this building will be high quality and operated the same way. So in terms of all the Hamilton standards, we meet them by and large, as you say, except for these two matters of relief. One is for the buffer requirement, 20 feet is required to the adjacent resident. We are proposing 0.5. The board has said, and frankly, rightly so, that's not enough. So we believe that doing a combination of shrinking the parking spaces, shrinking the sidewalk adjacent to the building, we can provide for an additional 3 or 4 feet along there, and then combine that with Mr. Chase's suggestion for the diamonds to provide for potentially additional area to maybe plant something that's a little larger, combined with extending the masonry wall around that side of the building. Again, good fences make good neighbors, good walls make good neighbors. But a solid masonry wall makes a better neighbor than a vinyl fence that is going to get damaged at 6 inches. So again, I think they're all good suggestions, and I think they're suggestions that my client is happy to address.
All right, so do you think, Mr. Takina, that based on what you've heard tonight from the board and based on the information you have and the testimony that's been presented, that the applicant can reasonably provide 3 or 4 feet of buffering using the techniques that have been suggested?
Yes, without question.
Okay, and do you think that the board can safely grant, if they choose to do so, final site plan approval based on those suggestions?
Yes, I believe we've provided sufficient information that you understand the directions we're going. The chair the chair and the board are going to do what they're comfortable with. In terms of even preliminary, again, it locks in the site plan, it locks in the variances, it locks in coverage and all those things. That is one thing to point out. The board asked, like, why does the building kind of stop on the North Dover side? And we literally ran out of coverage. So that takes us up to the building coverage, and that's literally why we stopped. So again, I think having it there is still a better alternative because, again, it encloses more of the parking. It has more of that to be inside. So our specific variance relief on that side is a combination of C1 and C2 variances. As you know, a C1 variance is something that relates to the particular physical limitations of the property. Here we have a property that on our east side is only 100 feet deep. And when you try and fit a 60-foot parking lot in a 40-foot building in 100 feet, it tends to get a little squeezed. As you know, Langview North Caldwell is the case that kind of provides some guidance on a C1 variance of that case, of that type. And there, the board was appropriate in granting a variance where the improvements are allowed to be of normal size and shape for their utility. And in terms of a parking lot, it's actually very important that some of those dimensions, particularly the 24 feet between the backs of the cars, are met. Because when they're not, that's when the cars back into each other. Because we're very well conditioned to do that turn in the 24 feet. And when it's not there, you're gonna back into things. I happen to live on a 24-foot wide street, and I know that if somebody parks on the other side of the street, they are in a 50% chance of one of my kids backing their car out into them. Because when the 24 feet isn't there, it matters. So again, those specific dimensions sometimes are very, 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 very important. The depth of the space, not as important. I drive a Toyota Highlander, one of the larger 3-row SUVs. It is only 15 feet, 5 inches long. Okay, so even at one of the bigger SUVs on the road, not a Suburban, but other than that, it's going to fit in that smaller dimension space, especially if we give the room, we're going to have a little room to overhang that curb a little bit before you run into the shrubs and everything that's there. So I think that a little bit of C1 there. And then secondly, we have a C2 variance, and that's where the benefits of the overall project outweigh any particular detriments of that specific relief. And in this case, we believe that the overall benefit of providing for the complete frontage on Hamilton, providing for the high-quality building, providing for the screening coming around both sides. We're going to supplement the screening on the east end of the property. I think when you put all of those things on balance, the benefits of granting the overall project outweigh the detriment of that piece where we're not fully complying. But I think with a combination of a wall, some columnar narrow shrubbery, and some deciduous trees that are planted in those islands, I think those three things can come together to provide a layered treatment there that is going to sufficiently address that that portion of the project. The second part of the relief is that obviously the negative criteria. I'm sorry, we have to show some special reasons first. Not special reasons. So the purposes of zoning. I think there are three. G, to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses, both public and private, according to their respective environmental requirements to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. Again, the applicant's proposing the use that's permitted. You heard our engineer talk about all the environmental aspects of our stormwater system. That is to the highest standards now, getting through DRCC and through the county and soils. So again, we're meeting all of our environmental requirements there. Purpose I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. I think this is good civic design. I think it respects the street. It has a great streetscape. I think we're going to have a great commercial frontage there. I think that as shown on the building immediately to our west at 695, I think that's actually the best treatment of the streetscape in terms of how the storefronts are treated along Hamilton so far. And I think this continues that in terms of taking the upper level siding and the treatment of the building down all the way to the kick plate, and only providing the stone at the kick plate at the 3.5 feet, as opposed to running it all the way up the 8 feet. Running it all up the 8 feet, as other buildings have done, it provides too much of a base for a building that's only 3 or 4 stories tall. So again, this proportion of the base, the middle, and the top is much more in proportion than other buildings, and I think very, very appropriate. It continues that high-quality treatment of the retail on Hamilton. And I'd also say, for my client there, His quality retail there, one, he's full, and two, he has high-quality tenants with, again, with the barber shop, with the pharmacy, with the golf simulator. So again, we have a full storefront there, and I'd expect it to continue here as well. So all those things directly support the HBD Hamilton Street Business District. In terms of our, and then Purpose M, to encourage coordination of various public and private procedures and activities shaping land development with a view toward lessening the cost of such development and to the more efficient use of the land. And what this goes to is, one, is to the efficiently using the land very well, and the HBD encourages that, but also it is dealing with the county and soils and DRCC and the town and the sewer and all those people, and taking all that together and still resulting in a project. So they're somewhat of a challenge, and again, providing for redevelopment here in a developed area is really the highest challenge for anybody. In terms of our negative criteria, again, we have no substantial detriment to public good. Again, this is a permitted use. It's replacing, really redeveloping a stretch of Hamilton that could use it. The buildings proposed are compliant in terms of height and bulk, and I think that we are providing for really thoughtful ways to make sure that we buffer our neighbors from any of our parking impacts in the rear. And I think with the board's guidance, that's only getting better. And then the second prong is that we're not going to impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. We are implementing the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. This is exactly what you asked for, and we're providing it. And I was really excited about it. The purpose of the HBD is to provide for commercial uses with supportive residential in combination to contribute an attractive, vibrant, and sustainable business district that is geared towards pedestrian circulation, bicycle circulation, and public transportation. Check. We do all those things. This is exactly what we're looking for in the Hamilton, in the HBD, and we're very, very pleased to do it. We recognize we do need relief there. We think we have a creative solution to it. The master plan goes on further for that, but as I said, all of these things substantially line up with exactly what you're looking for in the Hamilton Business District. And we're very pleased and proud to do it. And I'm available. So for those reasons, I believe you have the ability to grant the relief that is requested. And I'm available for your questions. The first question I'm going to answer is garbage. I also have the pleasure of my second office is 900 Main Street in Belmore, New Jersey. That is actually a 30-unit mixed use building on Main Street in Belmore, New Jersey, that I have the pleasure of having a shore office, and I also manage that building. And I have exactly what we have here. We have restricted entrance in the back. Our garbage is picked up by a 4-yard garbage truck, and really what's changed garbage has been the advent of those 96-gallon containers with the big wheels, and they're able to be rolled out by one person. They hook right to a little thing on the back of the truck, and it gets dumped into the truck, and it goes down. Nothing has to go up overhead. Everything can be done by one person, and you hire a private carter that is going to come in, go get your cans out of where they are in the building, dump them, and put them back in the building for you. That is the carter that you hire. And we will do it in such a way that whether it has to be done twice a week or 3 times a week, again, my 30-unit building in Belmar, we do it twice a week. That's it. That's all we need. And we don't use, I think we have 8 containers in here. We use 5. Again, garbage kind of fills its however much you give it. So again, but this is a managed building by someone who manages a high-quality project. Again, the advent of these 96-gallon containers really has changed garbage, eliminated the dumpster, eliminated the stink, eliminated the smell. The fact it has to stay in the building is better. It's kept more neatly, and it's kept cleaner. So we're very confident we can do that.
Before the planning board asks you questions affirmatively, based on the information that's been presented tonight, based on the mitigation that you've suggested, based on the exact items of mitigation, do you believe that this board can safely, if they so choose, grant complete approval tonight?
Yes.
Including the variances?
Absolutely.
And including final site plan approval?
Yes, without question. Have no other questions.
Open up to the board.
Yeah, I have a question again on the garbage. Thank you for explaining that detail. So maybe I'm missing a point. I'm trying to visualize that. The retailers, where are they going to keep the garbage until the dump truck, the garbage truck comes to pick it up?
So if you look at, this is A2, in the back, there's back doors, but the spaces are vanilla boxes, they're empty. What will happen is each retailer will build a little room that's right next to this back door that is accessible to that back door where the garbage is kept.
Okay, so that's going to be mandated for each retailer. That's
Correct.
the plan they'll have to follow. Okay.
Yes, they will
Got
need
it.
an interior location for their garbage.
Okay, I have another question. So I'm not too sure if you're able to answer because I just noticed it. On 695, right?
Mm-hmm.
The exit out of the parking lot on Bayer.
Yes.
Is that so? And the driveway for the parking lot for the new property, right? Are they going to be lining up?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, the 695 is deeper, so it's further back.
It's further back, but are they opposite each other?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, I just want to call on you to, you're our planner. What's your opinion in terms of the planning testimony you've heard tonight versus what the applicant's willing to do to meet your requests for buffering and setbacks?
Well, I think, we have it's a good question, and I don't know if I can necessarily answer it for you. I think some of the things like the buffering, if the board was satisfied with what was discussed tonight. So, for example, if the board was to say approved, subject to making the sidewalk 4 feet, making those spaces compact.
I'm not talking so much about that. I'm talking more about with respect to the C1 to C2 criteria. I mean, I'm respectfully, I do appreciate your planning testimony that we could grant preliminary and final tonight. The pulse of my board is that we have been burned before in the past by trying to engineer certain things, which is why I prevent the board from doing it. We'll give you our feedback. I'm not entertaining final tonight because I just think there are too many variables that I would like to see, from color treatments to walls to setbacks to whether we can get 2, 3, 4 feet, all of that stuff. I would like to see a final plan to know exactly what we're getting. I know that there are some veterans on this board who can tell you that when we have failed to do that in the past, we are often driving by these projects wondering what the hell we approved. And so, that's not going to happen.
I think I'll answer it like this. I mean, I think to a degree, and I'm going to work backwards.
Yeah.
To the degree that we're talking about a masonry wall, moving the parking lot down, adding some landscaping, I think that's speaking to the negative criteria. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be a substantial detriment? And would a solid wall with some landscaping provide the same amount of screening as a 20-foot wide landscaped area? Or would it sufficiently mitigate the impact of the variance? I mean, I think it probably could if it's a solid wall with some landscaping. But then you do have to think of the positive criteria. I don't know if it's really a C2. I don't know how a 3-foot buffer, 3.5-foot buffer is better than a 20-foot wide buffer. So I think the issue is it a hardship? And is the shape of the lot, the fact that it has this little notch in it, if you will, it's not a square piece of property, is that a hardship? I think it could be argued either way. I think you could decide that if they did make it smaller, the building smaller, and they had less parking requirement, they could get rid of those spaces and comply. They could.
We could do it without a variance and comply, but we'll just pay for the spaces. You have a mechanism to do it.
Well, I can tell you that the way that, I'd have to read our ordinance, but the way our ordinance, the way we typically apply this in Hamilton Street for all of these mixed-use developments is that the residential gets provided on site. And the payment in lieu is the commercial portion.
Which, again, we meet our residential now. We certainly get close. And again, do you need 20 feet? Can you do 10 feet? Is 5 feet enough? Again, we think we can get to 4 or 5 and keep our parking count. If you turned and went parallel and lost 4 or 5 spaces, you'd get 10 feet.
I was asked a question, and I'm laying it out for the board.
That's fine. I mean, at some point we have to put a pin in the ground and say, this is what we're considering. I mean, my own opinion is that, this, I think, compared to I look at it overall, not just in a vacuum.
Exactly how you should.
I think that a 20-foot buffer, there's no way you can say a 4 or 5 foot buffer is as good as a 20-foot buffer if that's the ordinance. However, is it sufficient for the use? And is the overall use a positive to the community? I think it is. I'm more backing the C2. A hardship, that I have more trouble seeing, because you could, like you said, you could even do something off-site, right, for the parking and comply, or you can even have a smaller building. So
from a legal standpoint, however, you don't need to prove both.
Right. And I'm just saying, when you say a mix of C1 and C2, I'm having a harder time seeing the C1 than I am the C2.
Well, the C1 is based on the statute itself, which talks about the specific property, as Mr. Tyson.
Yeah, I mean,
I can see your point, Dr. Racine.
Yeah, I mean that's all I'm saying. But like you said, you only have to satisfy one, not both. And I know I would think you satisfy the C2, and I mean it's your testimony that overall granting the variances would substantially outweigh any detriments. And I've asked this of our planning board attorneys in the past, what does substantially mean? Because in the statute, is substantially 51% better, or is it 2/3, 75? What does substantially mean?
I'm sure they said the law is gray.
And it's exactly what they said.
Are you Jim Clarkin?
I won't drop any names, but yeah. So
as a planning board attorney in other towns, I can tell you that's what I said.
Yeah. So
the only thing I will add, Mr. Chairman, is that to the extent the board may be inclined to proceed with preliminary and not final and grant variance relief, I don't know what variance relief you're granting, because one of the things they need is a variance for a setback, and you either need to quantify it or not quantify it. So, and I know from what's been discussed, you've got a variety of options on how they're going to try to create the greatest amount of space they can have. But you either need to come up with that number that they can meet, or if they can't meet it, then they've got to come back for a revision of that variance, because they're going to need a different variance. So that's where some of the problem's going to come in with proceeding with preliminary and not final.
Yeah.
I don't see how we can come up with numbers on some of the variances without seeing what's proposed. All this discussion, to me, just reinforces the idea. I like the project. I'm for it, right? I need to see what it's going to, whether the suggestions we made are going to do what they are intended to do.
So to
put it down on paper, bring it in. I just, we as a board have to take ownership of this after it's done. There's just too many things that are invisible right now. They need to be concrete.
Yeah. So to Peter's point, what I was trying to signal through preliminary, and he makes a good point, is because we maybe don't know exactly the extent of the relief we're going to grant you based on how many feet you can.
But we do.
Okay.
We do. I was huddling with the engineer and the planner.
Okay. What is it?
4 feet.
Okay.
And to get to the 4 feet, specifically, what do we need to do?
Reduce the sidewalk from 6 to 4 and reduce those parking spaces from 18 feet to 16 feet.
16 and a half.
16 and a half, and will overhang.
So the real question before the board is, will the board be satisfied with a 4-foot buffer?
And diamonds.
Because that's what we can do.
Yeah, no, I get it. And so, we could, that being said, I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I still don't think we can go beyond preliminary tonight, because I would like to see what the final design looks like.
Yeah.
But I understand that to even give them preliminary, we need to know what relief so now we know what relief we're getting, so thank you for that. And if the board is okay, then we'll simply give you preliminary and just want to see the final plans because of the reasons I've already stated.
Preliminary with the variances.
Correct. And you know, we would grant you the relief, and then you would revise the plan according to what you're saying, which is getting that 4 feet, and then whatever landscaping, whatever treatments, whatever trees, whatever shrubs, whatever diamonds, whatever, all of that, whatever the building's going to look like. But I did want it, I mean, my goal tonight was to try, at least kind of to paraphrase what Bob said. I think the board as a whole supports the project, thinks it's a good project. But we just do want to see the final plan. So, I mean, I'm willing to do that and to, you know, so.
And that's fine. I just want to make sure we understand the issues you have that are outstanding for final. So it is the treatment along each of the streets of the screening/wall.
Well, specifically, the part that they are requesting the variance from. They're compliant on at least half the property. The half that they can't, along North Dover, where we're granting them the relief for the parking lot setback and the buffering, the 4 feet that we're talking about, I want to see what that looks like in terms of wall and landscaping. I want to see what the building is going to look like with potentially different color treatments. I want to see what that fence is going to look like. I want to see what their parking is going to look like with the diamonds and all. And I just want to see kind of a revised overall plan.
Like I said.
And I would like to see, even though it's outside their jurisdiction, an attempt made with Somerset County to increase safety at that intersection by tightening up the radii, because it's not just a right turn concern, it's also a left turn concern as well.
The applicant also brought up a suggestion on their own that they might be able to treat the corner differently.
The engineer nodded his head. He will make that communication to the county.
So, Mr. Brown, what we would do is we would attempt to utilize the radius that's at North Dover, which is less, pull that over to Bayer to reduce it.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes your entrance much more inviting and everything.
Great.
Right.
I've been, again, I do this 4 nights a week. Very thoughtful board. Really good stuff.
This would be their opportunity to show us if they have an idea of how to treat the corner differently. They mentioned doing something above the roof.
What's that? Oh,
Yeah, if they wanted to do that. I mean, that's an architectural that, you know, you could.
Well, it also is part of the Hamilton business.
It is. It's a corner treatment, yeah. So let's do this. Let's open to the public because we need to do that, and then we can hopefully wrap it up.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any members of the public wishing to speak on this application?
Please come in. I'll swear him in.
Yeah.
Sir, before you begin, if I could just swear you in case you're going to provide any testimony in addition to questions. So if you could raise your right hand for me.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Do you swear any testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Sir, if you could just state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please, for the record.
Carl Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T, address 139 Fuller, F-U-L-L-E-R Street, Great Township of Somerset.
Thank you, sir.
Couple quick questions. Photo A07, schema at A07. The rear view of the building. Now, we talked about the light shining over into the houses next door. What I want to find out is, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're on Bear Avenue, across street from that beautiful building that we keep throwing in there, isn't there a fall off at the back of that building that goes down a hill? Is it a flat and then it dips down into a hill-like? Is that what we're talking about? Am I right or am I wrong? Correct?
I didn't get your question. What is the question?
At the back of the building,
Right.
as it states right now, does it go downhill?
You mean the light, the grade?
No.
Use the mic, sir.
It does, but it's
Sir,
not.
sir, you have to speak into the mic.
I can leave, yeah.
You can pick those things up, too.
They can't record you if you can't hear.
Turn it on. Push it off.
All right, so let me. It's about 1.5 foot difference in the back.
In the back?
Yes.
So now my question is, because right now, there's an issue with runoff water going downhill from the house right next door to the garage, whatever you want to call it, right there. So my question is, when you did that stormwater management or whatever you guys want to throw around with that term, does that catch that water coming down that hill so that it doesn't run into anybody else's driveway, anybody else's house? Is that getting caught by a catch basin or something going to catch that water? Or is it just going to keep running down the hill? Because that's part of the problem that we're having over there. So unless you're telling me you're going to put a curb halfway down the block to keep that water from channeling on in, then there's going to be an issue there once everybody else leaves and they grant all this preliminary injunctions and everything. What are we left with? So that's my first question.
Let me answer that before you get to the second one.
Second one. Now, how's that light work into the houses below? What type of buffering are we talking about? I mean,
let me ask you let me answer the first question.
Okay.
Okay. Right now, the way the property exists, everything goes towards the back, right? The slopes. There is no stormwater detention on the property. Whatever surface runoff, it just goes either to the Bear Ave, or to the rear of the property. What this project is doing, first of all, we have a building, and then we have a parking lot. Parking lot has a curb all around. So there is any water that will be either generated from the roof or from the open parking area will be collected into this underground detention system.
Okay.
So you're eliminating, I would say, 85% of the runoff right off the bat, right there.
And what about the rest?
The rest is all landscape. That whole area will be landscaped there. And it will be all impervious with the soil, so it will be absorbed with the ground. Plus, the system that we're designing, it reduces 2-year, 10-year, and 100-year storm event from the existing conditions. 2-year by 50%, 10-year by 25%, 100-year by 20%. So whatever you see now, first of all, we are containing everything, and then any discharge is going to be tied directly into the storm sewer line.
Okay, see, my
So
question...
in my opinion, you won't see a drop of water offsite.
Okay, see,
From a layman's perspective, if I understand our engineer correct, you're better off with the project than you are today.
Correct.
In your opinion.
Well,
my question is, and I'm in a bomber. I've been formaldehyde. It works on you all day long. My second question there is, with the light. Now, I don't know how you guys want to explain it, but that traffic sits, the cars are parked in the back of the lot, and when those cars turn around, the lights everywhere. So you're going to improve upon the situation because you have a new housing. The board gets to say, you got to come up with a new idea on how to protect the residents with the lighting and everything, okay? Now, someone mentioned it, and how's that barrier going to work? Trees, brush?
The way I see it, and again, it's just a concept in my mind right now based on the comments. We'll have 4 feet. First of all, we have 20 feet and a good landscape buffer for half of the property to the west side. The other half, what I have in mind is we'll have landscape buffer, 3.5 feet, then we'll have a wall at the end, at the property line, 4-foot high wall.
Am I gonna see any light whatsoever? I don't care how you
Absolutely,
buffalo
because usually
it,
an
whatever
average
you
height-
do.
average-
Do I see your lights coming to my house?
I don't think so, because the average height of the light from an average car is 2.5 to 3 feet high.
Unless
And
I got an
we are proposing
SUV.
a 4-foot high wall there.
Unless I got an SUV, then they were all.
Yeah, or
But that's
unless you have
beside
a
the
big
point.
tire, or they rigged it up with a big tire.
I'm not gonna see any of your light, that's what I wanna know.
That's the idea,
Okay,
yes.
that's all I wanna know.
Correct.
It's not just light, though. It's the cars slamming their doors late at night as well.
Yeah, and then, but again, also we are putting landscaping in front of the wall too now. So that landscaping will grow up and it will probably start, first of all, yeah, it will block some of the noise element as well. And plus over the time, over a year, 2 years, that landscape will grow and it will overshadow the wall. So whatever, any glare, probably you won't even see that glare.
And Carl, just so you know, I mean, that's one of the reasons that I am asking them to come back with a final plan, because we've given them this direction, but we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. So it gives us another bite at the apple to say, what are you actually going to do to address our concerns?
Yeah, you know, and a thing that also bothers me on the side note, some of my residents that were gonna show up, because you say you don't have to notice this thing anymore, then you actually got to follow this on the website as to what's been carried, what hasn't been carried, what's gonna be, they got lost on this number.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm the fall guy. I'm just catching questions as they come through, okay? We did the lights, we looked at the barrier, you're gonna come back with that little puppy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Parking. You know they're doing a traffic study on Hamilton Street, even though I think we're a couple hours late on that one. But we're looking at, are you giving these people, and you brought up the Hamilton Business District parking rules or whatever, are we giving each apartment 2 cars or each apartment a car and a half?
We have 18 units, we have 38 parking spaces. So it's more than 2 per unit.
Okay. Because I never understood how you can get a car and a half.
Actually, that's a good question that I've been asked all the time. Usually they use a ratio, like RSIS and DOT and all those standards. So they factor in the use type, the location of the use, and the visitors and all that aspect. So that 0.2, 0.3, 0.5 that you see is that element of that visitor's space. And then over the cumulative project, it adds up to number of space. So there is a formula behind that they come up with those requirements.
Yeah.
That sound good to you, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is, Carl, this is like one of these projects that I think is kind of rare. I think with what's been built on Hamilton Street is that, you know, there's always been some, like the commercial, right? Oh, you'll find parking on the street. These guys are actually providing their entire parking obligation on site. So, yeah, that parking is one of the least of my concerns. And your other question about the notification, that's just a state law. I mean, they notice once and they don't have to renotice unless there's, I don't know, some amount of time. I don't know what it is. But once they notice once, if it's carried by the board, then like you say, you kind of got to follow it. And if you're not here to say, oh, you know, it's being carried to such and such a date, then you don't follow it on the website. Yeah, I appreciate that. Unfortunately, it's not we can't force the applicant to renotice.
It would be nice. Let's change the law. Damn. That's all they gave me right quick. That water was just that one little thing there. Have any of you seen the property? Have any of you tripped over there and did a little look-see?
I know Charles has.
Yeah.
Okay, so we all good on this, right? Okay.
Well, compared to what's there, I think you're going to be.
No, forget what's there. I don't know about what's there. I mean, that's been there for 30 years, so I'm not sweating the details now, okay? It's just that if you're going to put something better, then please make it better. Don't just put the, you know, what they call the lipstick on the pig? Who said that? You know, I just don't want that type of thing done to my people. And since there's no shadow being cast, you don't have to worry about putting up solar panels and you coming back with your building, they can't collect money from PSE&G, right?
The building is going to, the roof will support solar panels.
No.
Oh, what?
My house.
Oh, your house.
Right, if I want to put solar panels there.
Yeah. Oh. Will it cast a shadow?
We are meeting the height requirements as per the redevelopment plan, yeah. It's only 3 stories, yeah.
Pretty far from the back property line.
Yeah.
You want to put solar in your house?
I do, but it's
all right.
okay.
All right.
I got them where I'm at, so it's okay. But I was just checking to make sure that, the residents gave me that question. I'm going to ask.
Fair enough.
Okay?
You're not going to get shadow until maybe half an hour before sunset.
Excuse me?
You're not going to get any shadow from the building until very short before sunset, yeah.
But you see, yeah, a little bit before sunset or whatever. You see what I'm trying to say? But anyway, we good. I can go back to what I found out. But I really would like that water situation. If you say that's going to be a catch thing, something
Between
that's
this
going to catch that
project
water.
and the improvements that the applicant has to do to 695, I think overall condition for the whole area will definitely be much better now.
So can you make them just pull that that curve down just a little bit?
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to try. Somerset County. Good luck.
Well, the Brown, I thought we was cool.
We are. We got it. They're going to try.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carl. Seeing no other takers, I move to close public
Second.
portion. All in favor?
Aye.
One additional item, Mr. Chairman. We discussed the fact that it's a portion, I believe, of the parking spaces that are going to go to 16.5.
Yes.
So it's just the spaces where you don't have the additional 20-foot buffer, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So I wanted to quantify that and just wanted to confirm with Mr. Healy that the parking space size then will be another, I don't know whether it's a variance, is it a waiver, is it a something? Because I would imagine we have a standard for the parking space size, and just that's another item of relief because I want to make sure the board understands it's granting it, and that it gets granted if it's appropriate so that they don't need to come back and address that then.
Yeah, I mean, our ordinance says 18 feet. So, I mean, that would require, I think we treat it as a variance to the degree that matters.
Most of my boards
Or
do.
design.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be a variance. But I'm assuming, Frank, that you've noticed for any and all, there's that language in your notice?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what that language is for.
All right. Does the board have any other questions? If not, I'm going to try to make a motion for this that was all-encompassing.
Mr. Chairman, let me just bring up, there was a list of things that that you had indicated before that you want them to look into. Just the 2 other things that I would like to speak with the applicant about, and that is the architectural treatment at the corners. I think with some,
we did mention that.
I think there's the potential there with some relatively minor changes to improve that to meet the standards better. And then in both my report and in the engineer's report, there's one particular light that the location needs to be looked at as far as off-site glare. One of that, they reduced the height, but there's still going to be some off-site glare, so we need to work with them on that.
Okay, so, I'll go ahead and make a motion for preliminary approval of the project, granting the variances of parking lot setback, and buffering, and the parking lot depth of 16 and a half feet.
Parking space.
Parking, what did it, yeah, parking space. A 4-foot, right, 4-foot buffer instead of the 0.5, so that's the relief we're granting. And then what we're going to do for final is we're going to come back and address all of the, and I'm not going to enumerate them again. I'll just put in language that all of the conditions that we talked about tonight in terms of design and compliance with the variance relief that the board is granting you. And that's it.
Second.
Okay. Let's vote. know you do. That's why I did verbatim.
Councilman Barson?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Robert LaCourt?
Yes.
Sean Keller?
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow?
Yes.
Mahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes, because I think it's a huge improvement for the site. Much in favor of it.
Robert Thomas?
Yes.
And Chairman Orsini?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much.
You're the
Just a
alternate if
procedural
somebody's
question,
missing.
I guess, directed to the chair and/or Peter. Regarding final, I assume that we go back to the drawing board, prepare a final, and submit the final plat.
We'll submit it, okay. So you'll submit it, and once it's been received, and I guess, I mean, I'm assuming it's an application form it'll be an application for final site plan approval with whatever the revised plans are, and at that point, it can be put before the board, but there's no notice requirement for a final site plan.
No, there's no notice requirement.
So,
Consistent with what the board had approved at preliminary, they don't need to notice.
right.
Right.
Yeah, so as long as you don't need new variance relief, you will, again, I don't handle logistics of a submittal, so I would defer to Mark as to what needs to come and accompany the plans, and...
Well, I think
we can preliminary final into.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. As far as it's going to maintain the same PLN number, your fees have already been paid, your escrow's already been paid. We don't do preliminary and final a lot.
No.
My initial thought would be I don't even think you need to submit even a new form, but I'll have to look into that. But you might have to submit a new application form for final. But again, I think it's going to stay under the same PLN number, et cetera.
But you'll let us know when the plans, the revised plans have been received and reviewed, and then Christine, you will work your magic and schedule the final.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Peter, you'll prepare a draft of the resolution, and I assume courtesy copy to the applicant's attorney for our review? Is that what you're doing?
Now you're telling me what I'm doing. Wow. Yes, I will prepare a draft copy, and I will send it out as a courtesy.
Okay.
It was a question, Peter. It was.
I know. I felt like I was... Are you Jim Clarkin?
All right, we got anything else tonight? If not,
Thank you so
motion to adjourn. Everybody second motion to adjourn. All in favor? We'll see you in 2 weeks, roughly.